Okay, thanks. Any other question, Conclude?
Yeah, I had a question about the map making contest, but yeah, we're gonna talk about that later on the stream, right? It's now it's not the time now. Let's talk about
Well,
gameplay
go.
and
Well, no, go ahead. If there's anything, well, in the meantime, I'll build some tier two units. So go ahead.
all
Ask
right,
away.
all right. I'm gonna. Well, regarding the map making contest, we're actually finished working on the rules, regulations, stuff like that. We're just waiting on the confirmation from coming from Relic themselves to take on the winning maps in the official map rotation contest. So like the map you saw, this map actually, this community map made by Uncle Sam. So yeah, we're just waiting on Nan to give us a confirmation that they will actually do that. Because up until this point, he said they will consider heavily putting the map on. But yeah, we wanna give you guys a solid promise coming from them that the winning maps will be put in the map rotation. Further on, we received the money coming from the community, so I think we have 500 euros to give out to you guys, so that's great. And I'm also working on getting some other prizes like I don't know DLC or game keys, stuff like that, to give to the runners-ups. And yeah, we're also working on the artwork for these things, so we're pretty close to launching it. The time for making the maps, you'll have about 6 to 8 weeks. We're gonna do 2 weeks of hyping, promoting this thing. Then we're gonna do 4 weeks of 4 weeks of submissions. So yeah, you guys have 6 weeks to submit the maps, and we're gonna do 2 weeks of judging. And during those 2 weeks, there might be a certain tournament in which your maps will be played. So make sure they're pretty damn good because they're gonna be costed around by several people. Because yeah, your maps will take part in a reasonably decent tournament. So you have time, and yeah, we'll do the rest. So good luck, everybody. That's all.
Okay, great. That's awesome news. So Pity Plash was asking, how do I prevent penals from Satchel so they do not die? I'm not sure what he means. Does he mean not getting his own penals killed from the Satchel charge?
I think he's talking about, yeah, his own penals basically not dying to their own satchel because it's got
Yeah.
such a small range that you often find that you kill more of your own guys than the enemy because the enemy actually retreats. You basically have to backpedal backwards or whatever. As soon as you finish throwing the charge, you have to move immediately
Yeah,
if you
get
want
away.
to stand a chance. The safest bet, and what I always do, is pretty much retreat as soon as I throw the satchel charge because there's just such a little amount of time with the animation and everything that you may get away with the squad, but you may end up losing one or two models depending on the
Well, I
situation,
have a little
obviously.
anecdote from that. I played a game, I think it was last week, where my enemy was wanted to satchel charge me, and he moved forward, but then he wanted to retreat, so he retreated in his own satchel charges and kill off his whole penal squad. It was hilarious to see.
Yeah, funny situations like that come up when people don't really know what they're doing with the satchel charge.
Okay, so let's move on with the tier two units. The first one, you'll have the Maxim heavy machine gun. So versus the MG42, the arc of fire is very small, so it doesn't cover a lot of ground. Um, it will suppress faster though, and it does move to set up and to demount. It takes a lot less time than the MG42. So if you do see a flanking your opponent is flanking your MG, you can quickly set it up again in the new direction. Because it doesn't take, as you can see, it really doesn't take a lot that much time for it to mount again. So you probably want to get a Maxim machine gun to counter the Panzer Grenadiers. So if your enemy is harassing you with 2 or 3 Panzer Grenadiers always sticking together, well, that's a good way of dealing with it. Anything you want to add with the Maxim MG?
More squad members than the MG42
Yeah,
counterparts, so
it's true.
like potentially, I say potentially because they tend to clump up and grenades tend to just destroy a lot more models, but it potentially has higher survivability, shorter arc, but that widens the further away it gets. Does more damage.
Yep.
Does have sprint, which is arguably pretty well.
Underuse.
Yeah, it's
Well,
underused because it seems like a weird ability for a Maxim
yeah,
squad,
exactly.
considering they're meant to be stationary. But seeing as the Maxim has such a narrow arc and you need to actually constantly reposition and move around of it for it to be properly effective, it makes sense. But I don't really have any other points. It's just a good unit to have against Panzer Grenadiers or something that your conscripts or whatever can't stand up to toe to toe.
Yep. Maybe another little point before we move on to the.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead, Van Kluge.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you guys, but
Yeah.
I have somebody asking why the Soviets have six-man squads and the Germans four-man squads, but yeah, it's I guess it's because the German squads the German squad health is 1.5 I think, and the Soviets has one yeah, I don't know. Sip, could you tell this?
Yeah, it's just the asymmetric nature of the game. Relic designed the two factions with asymmetry in mind, so the Russians realistically and in this game have higher squad models, but the German counterparts compensate for that by having, say, a higher armor rating or some sort of bonus over the, you could say, equivalent Soviet counterpart. So in the case of the Maxim and the MG42, the Maxim may have 6 men, but it obviously has a shorter arc. In terms of the Grenadier and the Conscript matchup, Conscripts have 2 more men, but their armor rating is 1.0 instead of the Grenadier, which stands at 1.5. So there's kind of like differences like that kind of even out the matchup, so to speak. So it's not that one side is ridiculously overpowered just
Yeah.
because they have more men, but they function in a similar way, yet have differences of their own, which make them unique and tailored to their specific faction.
So yeah, so just to make it simple, it's not because they have more men that they're more powerful necessarily, because they can have another unit even if they have 4 men, they have less health, or can have a higher rate of fire than the 6-man squad, for example, and that's how it balances out.
You also have to bear in mind that the Soviet tech tree is quite linear compared to the German one, and because the two tiers kind of split up the main units you kind of want to use in combination, so whereas strategies like MG42 with snipers are quite easily accessible to German players, for the Soviet players you'll find that you wouldn't really be able to field a tier 1 and a tier 2 in the same game, since you're kind of spending a lot of fuel which you could be used to tech to actual armor. So you kind of have to make that choice whether you want to go for a support based combined arms tier 2 kind of play with Maxims and Ziz guns, or whether you want to actually get some penal snipers and M3s. But at the same time, there's some decisions to make in that case, and you can't really get both. Well, you can, but you delay Tekken quite significantly.
Yeah, it depends. It's really depending on the game. But like Sib said, obviously you want to go in a game. You either want to go tier 1 and then tier 3 or 4, or tier 2 then tier 3 or 4. You don't want to go tier 1 then tier 2 because you're going to be delaying uh, your uh, your um, your tier 3 or 4, which gives you your tanks. So talking about tanks, we'll show off. Do you have any light vehicle or any vehicle, Sib, on the field?
I'm building a Panzer IV at the
Okay,
moment.
maybe I'll get off from the middle here, so you can
Yeah, let me
capture
just
the.
decap it.
Yeah, exactly. So while Siberian is building a vehicle, I'll explain a bit of the ZIS, your anti-tank gun. Um, like the pack, like I explained last week, even if it does not see in this in this cone of fire, well, it's gonna be able to shoot. I'll rephrase myself. It's gonna be able to shoot in this cone of fire. So even if it does not see here what's on the field because of the fog of war, it can shoot there. So it can shoot wherever inside this yellow cone of fire. So a good thing to do is to bring a squad in front so you can see further with it, and it can shoot, and it can start shooting shooting at whatever it sees. Or another thing you can do is use attack ground, and it will be able to attack through the fog of war. So if you know there's an enemy tank there, you can use that ability, attack ground, to start shooting in that area and hope that you hit your target. With the ZIS, what's special about it? You have the light artillery barrage. So for 60 munitions, it will shoot 6 high-powered shells, which is devastating against infantries. Especially that's a good counter to machine guns, since they're stationary. And they also do damage versus tanks, as you can see here, but not as much as if you would hit the tank directly with a with it. So for example, we'll just show it right here. So you can see it does penetrate pretty good, and it does deal a good amount of damage against either even a Panzer IV, which is a medium armor vehicle. So if you have a light vehicle against a ZIS, you want to get it out of there as soon as possible, because 1 or 2 shots and it will kill a light vehicle. Maybe you can bring some infantry nearby the ZIS, Sib. I'll just show off the tracking ability that I just got now, because at Vent 1 you can use the tracking. So it will show the so as you can see here, because of the ability for 20 munitions, I can see as far as this with the AT gun. So it's a good ability to use to scout ahead and see what's coming, and know where to point your anti-tank gun. Is there anything you want to add, Sid?
Yeah, since we're talking about the differences between the two factions, this is again has 6 men, has a slower rate of fire, does more damage, and reloads slower than the pack 40. But obviously the German counterpart reloads quicker, higher rate of fire, and higher damage. Obviously with veterancy bonuses, the two become more equal as they reach Red 3, but there's still minor subtle differences between the two.
So it's also a great way to combine. If you go with T-34s, it's also a great thing to combine your T-34s with, because your T-34s won't be as effective against medium or heavy tanks. They do some good damage versus, for example, a Panzer IV. But if you really want the advantage, obviously, if you use a ZIS gun with your T-34s, you'll probably win the fight way easier with combining the ZIS gun with your T-34s. And obviously, if you meet for example, an heavy tank like the Tiger on the field, you want to be using not just your T-34s, because their rounds won't be penetrating as much as a ZIS gun. So it's always good to have at least one, and usually I get a minimum of 2 ZIS most of the time. What about you?
It depends what kind of strategy I'm going. I don't want to go into too details
Yeah.
derate the discussion, but one ZIS, if you have tanks to support, is usually enough to actually tip the balance in your favor if you're fighting, let's say, a heavier tier tank than a T-34. But 2 is, I would consider, a hard-hitting AT force, and if you use it correctly, pretty much any kind of tank, bar the Bromwares, ridiculous scatter, which can sometimes destroy 80 guns in one shot. You'll pretty much take down any tank.
So it's especially good to go with two Ziz guns if you know you're low on fuel, if you're in, and your opponent has already a couple of tanks on the field. While one of the solution is get some Ziz guns because he won't be able to. It's going to be very hard for him to push in that position if you have two of them, which can take out a Panzer IV with 2-3 shots. So that's one thing you might want to do. Sib, can you maybe explain the Soviet mortar and how it's a little different than the German one?
Yep, it's got 6-man. Yeah, it fires slower. It has a precision strike, which has recently been changed to actually do normal weapon damage as opposed to doing the higher 120mm equivalent when you use it. So that's actually now a normal mortar barrage, but it comes at a trade-off. Can actually aim where your shell lands for a munitions cost. The German one fires faster, has less men, and has a counter barrage ability, which isn't really as potent as the Soviet counterpart, but the two even out in the sense that one may fire slower and deal a bit more damage, but the German one can obviously fire quicker, and that allows it to utilize tactics like fast barrage and then quickly redeploying, whereas you can't really do that with a Soviet one because you have to actually let it barrage, and that takes considerable more time.
Okay, great. So we'll jump